But he found evidence of deliberate burial in a very complicated, difficult cave system, which you can hardly access. The archaeological establishment descended on him like a ton of bricks and tried to find all kinds of reasons why it couldn't possibly be.
Did you know about the mysterious Osiris shaft hidden away on the Giza plateau? This intriguing archaeological site, tucked away from the more famous Great Pyramids and the Sphinx, has a story that's slowly been coming to light over the years. While the big monuments grabbed all the early attention, the Osiris shaft waited quietly for its turn in the spotlight.
Would it be fair to say that there's an element of a rediscovery of a lost technology from the past?
I think it would be fair to say that, yes.
It wasn't just another hole in the ground. This shaft held secrets of ancient Egyptian civilization and their religious practices that were only beginning to be uncovered. It's fascinating to think that this place was just sitting there, known since the late 19th century but not getting much love from explorers. They were all dazzled by the pyramids and Sphinx.
I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
But as it turns out, the Osiris shaft had its own tale to tell, one that required a bit of patience to fully appreciate. Enter the 1990s and things started to change. That's when Zahi Hawass, a name many of you might recognize, took the reins and decided it was time to give the Osiris shaft the attention it deserved. Under his guidance, a thorough exploration began, peeling back the layers of its complex architecture. What they found was a marvel, a glimpse into the depth of Egyptian religious thought and engineering prowess. But getting to the heart of the Osiris shaft wasn't a walk in the park. The team faced the massive challenge of pumping out water that had filled its lower levels, especially the third level that was partially underwater.
But what happened a few years ago, that the water began to rise in front of the Sphinx temple outside. Then I was really afraid that this water can damage the Sphinx.
Imagine the effort it took to bring in modern pumping equipment and clear out all that water just to access the deepest secrets of the shaft. Its 3 levels diving deep into the earth turned out to be a fascinating puzzle of architecture, burial customs, and hidden treasures. The first thing that caught their eyes was the shaft's design itself. It's a marvel of ancient engineering, with each level serving its own mysterious purpose. Down at the very bottom, a large stone sarcophagus sits in a chamber that's partly underwater, painting a vivid picture of the ancient Egyptian underworld right there beneath our feet. It's as if they built their own version of the afterlife hidden deep in the Giza plateau. But then there's the second level with its 6 empty burial shafts. Imagine the archaeologists' surprise finding them all vacant. It sparked so many questions. Were they plundered, or were they never meant to hold anything in the first place? This level offers a glimpse into the burial practices and rituals of the time, even if it leaves us guessing about some of the details. Despite the lack of inscriptions, a kind of ancient billboard that could have told us exactly who made this and when, the bits and pieces found throughout the shaft speak volumes. Pottery shards, fragments of stone vessels, and other small artifacts serve as breadcrumbs leading us back in time, suggesting that the Osiris shaft might hail from the New Kingdom period. It's like detective work, where every clue helps build a case for when this incredible structure came into being. But perhaps the most touching finds were the mummified remains tucked away in the smaller chambers around that central sarcophagus. It's one thing to study the grand monuments and temples, but it's another to come face to face with the people themselves. Analyzing these remains gives us a rare peek into the lives of those who once walked the streets of ancient Egypt, what they ate, how they lived, and maybe even how they died. Let's talk about Osiris for a moment. He's not your average deity, he's the ancient Egyptian god of the afterlife, death, and rebirth. The story goes that Osiris was betrayed by his brother Set, leading to a saga of death, dismemberment, and a resurrection that sounds like it came straight out of a blockbuster movie. His wife Isis put him back together and brought him back to life. Osiris's story is a cornerstone of Egyptian mythology, embodying the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And guess what? The Osiris shaft is like a 3-dimensional tribute to this epic tale. Down in the depths of the shaft, there's this chamber filled with water that's believed to represent the underworld. Imagine standing there in front of a large stone sarcophagus that's meant to symbolize Osiris's tomb. It's not just a tomb, It's a symbol of his journey through death and his role as the ruler of the afterlife. But why build such a place? Well, one theory is that the Osiris shaft was a venue for initiation rites. Think of it as a spiritual boot camp where participants would undergo trials, symbolizing death and rebirth, much like Osiris did. These rites weren't just for show. They were believed to impart secret knowledge and bring about a spiritual transformation in the initiates. Some even speculate that the shaft's design was guided by the stars, aligning with celestial bodies that the ancient Egyptians associated with Osiris and the afterlife. It's as if the shaft was a bridge between Earth and the heavens, a physical representation of the soul's journey after death. What's truly fascinating is how the physical structure of the Osiris shaft and the artifacts found within echo the ancient texts like the Pyramid texts and the Book of the Dead. These texts offer a glimpse into the Egyptian view of the afterlife, complete with references to water, boats, and, yes, the significance of sarcophagi. It's like the shaft is a stone-bound version of these ancient scrolls, a tangible connection to the beliefs and rituals of a civilization long gone. Buried deep within the limestone bedrock, the Osiris shaft, it's a three-level maze that masterfully blends practicality with a touch of the mystical. Let's dive into what makes the architecture and structure of the Osiris shaft so fascinating. First off, the way this shaft was designed and built is nothing short of amazing. It shows just how advanced the ancient Egyptians were in their planning and building techniques. The precision with which they carved out these chambers from the bedrock really makes you wonder about their deep understanding of the earth beneath them. At the entrance, you're greeted by a rectangular opening that starts your descent into the depths. This isn't just a hole in the ground, it's a carefully carved vertical shaft dropping down about 10 meters. Imagine the effort it took to remove all that limestone, using tools made from harder stones and metals, and even ropes and wooden scaffolding. It's a testament to their engineering skills. The first chamber you hit is pretty modest. No flashy decorations or treasures, but its simplicity might have been the point. It's like a waiting room or a space for getting ready for something more profound down below, maybe even for some kind of purification rites. But the real intrigue starts when you go deeper to the second level. Here, there's another shaft leading down another 20 meters, and this chamber is a bit more complex. These shafts could have been meant for actual burials, or perhaps as a representation of the journey to the afterlife. The third level is where things get even more dramatic. You go down another shaft, and this time you're 30 meters below the surface. Here lies a large stone sarcophagus, right in the center of the chamber. This isn't just a burial place, it's a symbolic representation of Osiris's tomb. The fact that this chamber is partially filled with water from the natural aquifer adds to the mystique, tying it to themes of rebirth and purification in Egyptian mythology. Graham Hancock is a name that often sparks lively discussions whenever ancient civilizations are mentioned.
There are huge corporations that have very large investments in a particular path of technology. Sure. For somebody to come up with a whole new path of technology, it's very threatening to them.
Known for his captivating books like Fingerprints of the Gods and Magicians of the Gods, Hancock is no stranger to controversy, especially with his theories that challenge the mainstream archaeological narrative. Today, let's dive into how Hancock's unconventional ideas might shed new light on the mysterious Osiris shaft.
They fell there, something like that.
All of them?
Yeah, all
Over
of them.
many
and
years?
somehow buried themselves under the topsoil.
At the core of Hancock's theories is the tantalizing notion of a lost advanced civilization. This isn't just any civilization, but one that supposedly predates all known history, equipped with knowledge in astronomy, architecture, and mathematics that far exceeds what we'd expect from our ancient ancestors. Hancock might say the Osiris shaft, with its intricate design and possible astronomical alignments, serves as a kind of time capsule from this sophisticated society. Could it be that this ancient marvel is much older than we think, or that it was built with wisdom handed down from this enigmatic civilization? Hancock's fascination doesn't stop at architecture. He's also keenly interested in how these ancient structures align with the stars. While he hasn't specifically pinpointed the Osiris shaft in his star maps, it's easy to imagine it fitting neatly into his grand scheme of things. Could the shaft's orientation hint at a connection to celestial events or constellations tied to Osiris and the themes of death and rebirth? Hancock's work suggests that many of Egypt's ancient monuments are part of a larger cosmic blueprint, and the Osiris shaft might just be another piece of that puzzle. One of the more dramatic elements of Hancock's theories involves global cataclysms, particularly those caused by comet impacts around 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, during what's known as the Younger Dryas. He proposes that these catastrophic events could have wiped out the advanced civilization he theorizes about. So, when we look at the water filling the lower levels of the Osiris shaft, Hancock might see it as more than just groundwater seepage. He could interpret it as a deliberate nod to the ancient deluges, a symbol of the world-altering floods that his hypothesized civilization endured. Do you think there have been multiple ancient cataclysms?
This is one of the things that, the archaeologists and the prehistorians, people are looking at that, have failed to take into account. Now, within there could be all kinds of stuff that's not even recognized as being artificial in the sense that humans had anything to do with it.
Tucked away in the heart of the Great Pyramid of Giza lies the King's Chamber, a marvel of ancient Egyptian architecture that continues to fascinate historians and visitors alike.
If you look at the famous King's Chamber, its walls and its ceiling of the King's Chamber are all made with gigantic granite blocks.
Imagine walking through the Grand Gallery, a corridor stretching 47 meters long and rising 8.6 meters high, to reach this iconic chamber. This journey alone, through such an expansive space within the solid stone of the pyramid, showcases the incredible skill of ancient Egyptian builders.
Now, Egyptologists will tell you that, they could move heavy blocks because they put them on wet sand and they push them along on wet sand. Well, maybe if you're just at ground level, that will do. But when you're 350 feet above the ground, as you are in the King's Chamber, that won't do at all.
The King's Chamber itself is a testament to the Egyptians' advanced understanding of materials and construction techniques. Carved from red granite brought all the way from Aswan, over 800 kilometers away, the chamber's very walls speak of a civilization capable of monumental feats of logistics and engineering. The room's dimensions, about 10.47 meters by 5.234 meters and 5.974 meters high, are thought to be imbued with symbolic meaning, perhaps aligning with celestial or pharaonic principles.
If we're only looking for a mere reflection of ourselves, we could overlook it completely. I think we're getting very close to rediscovering some of the things that our ancient ancestors were up to.
At the chamber's center lies a red granite sarcophagus, believed to be the intended resting place of Pharaoh Khufu, though intriguingly, no human remains have ever been discovered within it. The sarcophagus bears marks of damage and wear, silent witnesses to the millennia that have passed since its creation. Its very presence in the chamber, given its size, suggests it was placed there during the construction of the room, hinting at the meticulous planning that went into the pyramid's design. Above the chamber, an ingenious system of 5 relieving chambers helps distribute the weight of the pyramid, protecting the space below. This feature highlights the ancient builders' sophisticated understanding of structural integrity. Additionally, the chamber is equipped with 2 narrow shafts extending to the pyramid's exterior. Initially thought to be for ventilation, these shafts are now believed to possibly serve a more symbolic purpose, possibly aligning with stars or celestial phenomena significant to Khufu's journey in the afterlife. Step into the heart of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you'll find yourself in the Grand Gallery, an awe-inspiring testament to the ancient Egyptians' architectural genius.
I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
This corridor is not just a path to the King's Chamber. It's a showcase of ancient ingenuity and a symbol of the civilization's advanced engineering capabilities. Imagine walking through this grand space, with walls that narrow as you look upwards, thanks to the sophisticated corbelling technique used in its construction. This method, where each layer of stone slightly overhangs the one below, creates a dramatic narrowing effect towards the ceiling. It's a clear sign of the Egyptians' mastery in using architecture not only for structural stability, but also to inspire awe. The materials themselves, limestone blocks for the walls and heavier stones for the ceiling, were chosen with care, ensuring the gallery could bear the immense weight of the pyramid above. The Grand Gallery served a crucial role as the gateway to the King's Chamber, possibly designed to awe and inspire those who walked its length. but its purpose might have extended beyond mere access. Some scholars suggest it played a part in the pharaoh's funeral procession or other rituals connected to the afterlife journey. Features like the Great Step, a massive stone at the gallery's end, and various slots and holes along its walls hint at a space designed for more than simple passage, possibly aiding in the construction of the chamber. Moving on to another fascinating marvel of the pyramid, the Queen's Chamber. It holds mysteries that have puzzled scholars and enthusiasts for centuries. Despite its regal name, it's widely believed that this chamber was never intended as a final resting place for a queen. The lack of any burial artifacts and its distinctive features have sparked endless speculation about its true purpose. Positioned centrally within the pyramid, yet at a lower elevation compared to the majestic King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber offers its own unique allure. Imagine venturing about 20 meters above the ground level through a corridor extending from the Grand Gallery to discover this intriguing space. Its dimensions create an unexpectedly spacious environment, with a pointed roof reaching up towards the pyramid's core, adding to the chamber's grandeur. One of the chamber's most striking features is a large niche in the eastern wall. Standing about 4.6 meters high, this vertical recess has baffled many. Was it intended for a statue serving a symbolic or ritualistic purpose, or does it hold a deeper meaning related to the pharaoh's journey in the afterlife? The construction technique of the chamber's roof, using corbelled layers of stone that create an inverted V-shape, mirrors the design seen in the King's Chamber, suggesting a deliberate architectural choice to ensure stability and perhaps to bear symbolic weight. Theories about the chamber's purpose are as varied as they are fascinating. Some suggest it was used for rituals related to the pharaoh's rebirth or regeneration, with the niche possibly housing a statue or symbolic object. Others propose that its location and design might reflect ancient Egyptian cosmological beliefs or serve a more mundane purpose, like distributing the pyramid's weight or housing a statue of the deceased in a serdab-like arrangement. Recent technological advances have opened new doors in understanding the Queen's Chamber. Non-invasive techniques like infrared thermography and muon radiography have been employed to peek behind the chamber's walls, searching for unknown cavities or clues to its construction and purpose. Within the Great Pyramids lays another mystery. Its air shafts and the subterranean chamber, features as fascinating as they are puzzling. The air shafts, narrow corridors carved into the stone, stretch from the King's and Queen's chambers to the pyramid's exterior. These aren't your average architectural elements. Their design, discovery, and speculated purposes are a treasure trove of intrigue and speculation. First off, these air shafts are tiny, just about 20 by 20 centimeters, too narrow for any human to pass through. They zigzag with precision towards the heavens, pointing to specific regions in the sky that held great significance in ancient Egyptian cosmology. Discovered in 1872 by the engineer Wayman Dixon, the shafts from the Queen's Chamber were a late find in the pyramid's history, adding layers to the mystery surrounding this ancient wonder. Originally thought to ventilate the chambers, this idea doesn't hold up for the Queen's Chamber shafts, which don't quite reach the exterior. Instead, the prevailing theories are far more mystical. Some believe these shafts were aligned with stars or constellations like Orion and Sirius, linking the pharaoh with the gods of the afterlife. The intrigue doesn't end there. With modern tech, robotic cameras probe these shafts, uncovering doors and chambers within, deepening the mystery. What were these ancient engineers up to? The plot thickens with the subterranean chamber, a rough-hewn space carved into the bedrock. Unlike the finished elegance of the pyramid's upper chambers, this one's all raw edges and mystery, suggesting it was abandoned mid-construction. Was it intended as Khufu's original tomb, a symbolic underworld, or something more practical like a flood defense? Theories abound, but no one's quite cracked the code. This chamber's unfinished nature has led to all sorts of speculation about its purpose and why it was left incomplete. Imagine stumbling upon a hidden chamber within one of the world's oldest and most mysterious monuments. That's exactly what happened when scientists discovered the Big Void, a revelation that's as thrilling as it is mystifying. The key to uncovering the Big Void was muon radiography, a fancy term for a technique that uses naturally occurring particles called muons, which rain down from the Earth's atmosphere. These particles have the unique ability to penetrate solid stone, providing a way to peek inside the pyramid without drilling or causing damage. By detecting variations in muon density, scientists can identify empty spaces, like our newly found void. This discovery was the result of international teamwork, part of the Scan Pyramids project, which brought together experts from around the globe to explore the pyramid's innermost secrets. So, what do we know about the Big Void? Well, it's situated above the Grand Gallery, a known cavity within the pyramid, and stretches for at least 30 meters, roughly the length of the gallery below. Its size suggests it was a significant part of the pyramid's design, but its purpose remains a tantalizing mystery. Was it intended to relieve weight from the Grand Gallery below, a hidden chamber for ceremonies, or perhaps just an architectural quirk? The truth is, we're not quite sure yet. The discovery of the Big Void opens up new avenues for exploration and research. Scientists are now considering more advanced methods to study the void in detail, like drilling small holes to insert cameras, all without harming the pyramid's structure. This void could provide invaluable insights into how the ancient Egyptians built such monumental structures and why they included such spaces within the pyramid's design. Each new discovery within the Great Pyramid is a piece of the puzzle in understanding one of humanity's most remarkable achievements. The Big Void isn't just an empty space, it's a reminder of the mysteries still waiting to be solved and the stories of the past yet to be told.
So this, if it were true, and it is true, would put the Sphinx back to a much earlier period, which would tie in with Schwaller's work and John Anthony West's subsequent work, that there were indications that dynastic Egypt as we know it, going back to about 3000 BC, was really a legacy of what I call now an earlier cycle of civilization.
Robert M. Schoch, a geologist with a PhD from Yale University, came up with a fascinating idea in the 1990s about the age of the Great Sphinx of Giza. He noticed something interesting about the erosion patterns on the Sphinx and the surrounding area. Unlike the typical wind and sand erosion you'd expect in Egypt's deserts, these patterns looked more like they were caused by water. This was a big deal because it suggested that the Sphinx might be much older than we thought. Now, Graham Hancock, a well-known British author who loves digging into ancient mysteries, found Schoch's theory really interesting and started supporting it.
Since the early 1990s, question marks have been raised over the age of the Great Sphinx of Giza in Egypt. Egyptologists think it's about 4,500 years old, although there's not a shred of inscription evidence to support this date. Independent researcher John Anthony West and Robert Schoch, professor of geology at Boston University, have made a case that the Sphinx must be much older than that.
Hancock is known for questioning the usual stories we hear about historical and archaeological sites. Schoch's theory caught his eye because it suggested that the Sphinx was around during a time when Egypt had a lot of rain, which was way back around 8,000 to 10,000 BCE. This idea of heavy rainfall leading to the erosion we see on the Sphinx today is really cool, but also quite controversial. You see, traditionally, archaeologists have dated the Sphinx to around 2500 BCE, during Pharaoh Khafre's time. They base this on where the Sphinx is located in the Giza pyramid complex and how it looks compared to other stuff from that period. But if Schoch is right and the Sphinx was actually built when it was much wetter in Egypt, then it could be thousands of years older than we thought, maybe even dating back to the Neolithic era. That's a pretty big shake-up in how we think about ancient Egyptian history.
To put it bluntly, the Sphinx did not originate with Khafre in the 4th dynasty, and really the beginning of my serious work and career looking at ancient civilizations.
Instead of the typical wear and tear you'd expect from wind and sand in a desert, the Sphinx had features like deep cracks, wavy lines on its limestone walls, and smooth, rounded edges. These are the kinds of things you usually see with water erosion, not wind or sand. Now, the Sphinx is made out of limestone, which is pretty easy for water to wear down. And what's interesting is that this limestone is made up of different layers, some harder than others. Schoch saw that the water erosion affected these layers in a way that you wouldn't really see if it was just wind and sand doing the damage. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Schoch looked at the climate history of the Sahara Desert and the Giza area and found out that way back between 10,000 and 5,000 BCE, this place wasn't the dry desert we know today. It was actually pretty wet, thanks to something called the Neolithic subpluvial phase.
We know there were ultra hyper-arid Sahara conditions on the Giza Plateau for the last 5,000 or so years. And this ties in with the origins of civilization, according to the standard story, which is that civilization began between 4,000 3,000 BCE.
This was a time when there was a lot more rain. So Schock thinks that this rainy period might have caused the kind of water erosion we see on the Sphinx, suggesting it's much older than we thought, maybe even dating back to these wetter times. This goes against the usual dating of the Sphinx to around 2500 BCE during Pharaoh Khafre's reign, based on its style and where it's located in the Giza pyramid complex. Schock's idea definitely shakes things up in terms of how we think about the Sphinx's age. So Robert Schock didn't just look at the Sphinx in isolation when he was thinking about this whole water erosion idea. He actually compared the wear and tear on the Sphinx with other ancient limestone sites that had been exposed to a lot of rain. This was his way of checking if what he saw on the Sphinx matched up with known patterns of water erosion elsewhere. It's like looking at different worn-out jeans to figure out if they got ripped from climbing trees or just from washing them a lot. He found sites with a clear historical background where they knew for sure that rain had done its thing over the years. When he looked at these places, he noticed that the erosion patterns were quite similar to what he was seeing on the Sphinx. This kind of bolstered his argument that the erosion on the Sphinx could really be from water, not just wind or sand.
You look at the evidence, and that's really where I was coming from. But my point is that even in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when I first got involved with this, if I looked at it critically, the evidence was not that definitive for the age of the Sphinx.
Schock's approach was pretty comprehensive. He wasn't just a geologist looking at rocks. He was also considering the weather patterns from thousands of years ago and what archaeologists were saying about these ancient sites. It's like he was piecing together a big jigsaw puzzle from different fields of study. But of course, there are always different sides to a story. Some critics pointed out that the erosion could be due to other natural processes unique to the Giza area, like fluctuations in groundwater, or the way certain chemicals in the air might wear down the rock. And then there's the whole thing about what archaeologists have found around the Sphinx, like artifacts and writings that suggest it was built around 2500 BCE, during Pharaoh Khafre's time. This kind of goes against Schock's idea that the Sphinx is way older because of the water erosion. So it's a bit of a puzzle with some pieces still missing. Graham Hancock has this really intriguing idea about an ancient civilization that he thinks existed way before the ones we usually learn about in history books, like the Egyptians, Sumerians, and the Indus Valley folks. He reckons this civilization was around many millennia earlier, and that it might have been wiped out by a huge comet impact around 10,000 BCE. Imagine that a whole advanced society just gone in the blink of an eye, leaving only bits and pieces behind. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Hancock thinks this civilization wasn't just hanging out in one spot, it was all over the place, having a global influence. He suggests that after whatever disaster hit them, the survivors might have traveled far and wide, sharing their knowledge and helping kickstart other ancient cultures. Hancock dives into myths and oral traditions from all over the world too. He's not just dismissing these stories as old wives' tales, but considering them as potential historical records. For example, he's really interested in the flood myths that pop up in different cultures. He thinks these might be a collective memory of a real event that had a huge impact on this lost civilization.
The best explanation is that floods of icy meltwater released by the heat and kinetic energy of the impacts flowed off the North American ice cap and into the Atlantic Ocean, where they interrupted the Gulf Stream, a key element of the central heating system of our planet, hence the sudden and dramatic cooling.
Now, Hancock is big on astronomy. He points to how some ancient structures, like the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx, line up with certain stars and constellations. He thinks this isn't just a coincidence, but a sign of advanced astronomical knowledge. He's also into the idea that these ancient folks understood the precession of the equinoxes. That's a fancy term for a slow shift in Earth's rotation over a 26,000-year cycle. If he's right, it means they were way ahead of their time in understanding the cosmos. Graham Hancock has this captivating theory about ancient civilizations and their architectural wonders. He's really into how these old structures, like the pyramids in Egypt, Stonehenge, and those incredible megalithic sites in South America, show off some serious engineering and architectural skills. Hancock reckons that to build these things with such precision and detail, those ancient folks must have had some advanced knowledge and technology that we don't usually give them credit for. Take, for instance, the way the stones are cut at Pumapunku in Bolivia. Hancock points out that the cuts are so precise, it's as if they had access to some really advanced tools. And when it comes to building massive structures, he's all about the techniques they must have used. He's amazed at how accurately these huge stones were fitted together, often without any mortar, and wonders how on earth they moved and positioned stones that weigh several tons. This isn't just your everyday heavy lifting. We're talking about some serious know-how in engineering and possibly some clever uses of leverage and pulley systems. Now he doesn't stop there. He's also fascinated by the mathematical and geometrical knowledge that these structures reveal. He talks about the use of the golden ratio, pi, and precise angular measurements, which shows a sophisticated understanding of math and geometry. Like, take the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Its alignment, the way its base is perfectly level, and the precise angles of its sides. Hancock sees this as evidence of a much more advanced understanding of geometry and engineering than we might think. Then there are the monumental buildings in Mesoamerica, such as the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan and the Mayan pyramids. Hancock highlights their architectural sophistication, urban planning, and the use of large stone blocks. All of this, to him, points to a level of technological proficiency and knowledge that goes way beyond what we've traditionally thought was possible for these ancient cultures. In a nutshell, Hancock is looking at these ancient structures and saying, hey, there's more to the story here. He's suggesting that these civilizations had a depth of knowledge and skill in construction, engineering, and mathematics that challenges our conventional understanding of ancient history.
It wasn't something the Maya made up. The Olmecs used that same symbolism. So the Mayan calendar is actually an Olmec calendar. And if we then consider the possibility that the Olmecs may just be the latest, the earliest surviving manifestation of that calendar, it could go back.
Then there's Teotihuacan in Mexico. Hancock looks at the layout of this ancient city and sees a kind of mirror image of our solar system's planetary orbits. To him, this suggests that the people who built Teotihuacan had a pretty detailed knowledge of astronomy and space. Stonehenge in England is another example. Hancock thinks it was used as an astronomical observatory because of how it aligns with the solstices. He sees this as further evidence that ancient people understood celestial movements really well. And let's not forget about the Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. During the equinoxes, this pyramid casts a shadow that looks like a serpent. Hancock sees this as a sophisticated way of tracking the sun's path, again showing an advanced understanding of astronomy. Hancock also dives into the idea of precession, which is this slow wobble in Earth's rotation that takes about 26,000 years to go full circle. He looks at how the Giza pyramids align with Orion's belt, and how the Sphinx lines up with the Leo constellation during what's known as the Age of Leo, around 10,500 BCE. He thinks these alignments aren't random but deliberate, showing that the people back then understood this complex astronomical phenomenon. So, in a nutshell, Hancock is really into the idea that ancient structures around the world weren't just built for the heck of it. He believes they were deliberately aligned with stars, constellations, and celestial events, showing that ancient civilizations had a much deeper understanding of astronomy than we usually give them credit for.
The people in Egypt, they believed in what's called Chemet, the people that existed before the Egyptians. When we hear these stories about the Great Pyramid being a tomb for the pharaoh, it's worth mentioning that even the locals didn't believe that.
Once upon a time, as the last ice age retreated and the Earth began a dramatic transformation, the stage was set for a narrative that would challenge our understanding of human history. This was a time of global climatic shifts, marked by rising temperatures, melting ice, and rising sea levels. Human societies, which had thrived as hunter-gatherers during the chill of the Ice Age, began to spread across the planet. This period, known as the Mesolithic era, saw the dawn of permanent settlements and the beginnings of agriculture. But according to the intriguing and controversial Chemet theory, this era also witnessed the rise of something extraordinary in the Nile Valley.
The Great Pyramids and their relationship to the River Nile reflect the sky of 12,500 years ago, not 4,500 years ago.
The proponents of the Chemet theory weave a tale of an advanced civilization, one that allegedly emerged amidst these climatic upheavals. This civilization, they claim, was not just advanced for its time, but possessed knowledge and technology that would leave later societies in awe. Their mastery, it is said, extended across various domains. In the realm of astronomy, the people of Chemet supposedly had an intricate understanding of celestial bodies. They could track astronomical events with precision, knowledge that they might have used to develop sophisticated calendar systems and guide their agricultural activities.
The Great Pyramid is an incredibly complicated monument, but those who built it had an enormous knowledge, which they manifested in the Great Pyramid.
But their expertise did not end with the stars. The architectural marvels of ancient Egypt, such as the pyramids, are believed by adherents of this theory to be remnants of this earlier, more sophisticated civilization. Further, this mysterious civilization is credited with extraordinary advancements in medicine and mathematics, and perhaps even in fields of energy and physics that modern science has yet to rediscover. The legacy of their knowledge, it is suggested, was far-reaching. The proponents of the Chemet theory point to various pieces of evidence to support their claims. They observe geological anomalies that mainstream archaeology might overlook or interpret differently. For instance, the erosion patterns on the Sphinx and certain features of the pyramids are argued to be much older than the established timeline suggests.
The Great Sphinx was subjected to about 1,000 years of heavy rainfall, and that's the only time you find that heavy rainfall on the Giza Plateau is the Younger Dryas. Between roughly 12,800 and 11,600 years ago. You certainly didn't find it 4,500 years ago when the Sphinx is supposed to have been made.
Proponents cite water erosion marks on the Sphinx, which they claim point to a construction date that predates the aridity of the Sahara Desert. Moreover, the theory draws on mythological and cultural parallels. It notes similarities in ancient myths, religious practices, and architectural styles across different cultures. These similarities are interpreted as echoes of a shared source of ancient wisdom, potentially originating from Chemet. According to the narrative of the Chemet theory, after a catastrophic event, the survivors of this advanced civilization dispersed globally. This diaspora, the story goes, spread their advanced knowledge far and wide. This could, as the theory suggests, explain the sudden rise of complex civilizations and monumental architecture in various parts of the world. In the annals of alternative historical narratives, the Chemet theory stands out as a captivating tale of a civilization steeped in mystery and marvel. This story begins with the assertion that an ancient civilization, referred to as Chemet, once flourished with knowledge and technologies so advanced that they remain incomprehensible even to contemporary science. The echoes of this lost civilization are believed to be found in the monumental achievements of ancient Egypt, particularly in the realms of astronomy and engineering. In the realm of engineering, the pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid of Giza, are often presented as the pinnacle of Chemet's architectural prowess.
The mystery of the construction of the Great Pyramid, which, contrary to archaeological views, has never been solved.
Right.
Nobody knows how it was done. I mean, you are looking at 6 million tons, 13-acre footprint, 481 feet tall, 2.5 million blocks of stone in its construction.
How'd they do it?
Nobody knows how it was done.
The theory marvels at the precision and scale of these constructions. It questions how the ancient Egyptians of later periods, with their known tools and technologies, could achieve such feats. The meticulous alignment of the pyramids to true north, the transport and assembly of massive stone blocks, and the use of advanced mathematics, including pi and the golden ratio in their design, are all highlighted as indicators of a superior technological capability. Venturing further into the realm of speculation, some proponents of the Chemet theory suggest that this civilization might have harnessed unknown forms of energy or technology. Ideas range from the use of acoustics and vibrations for stone cutting and levitation, to more esoteric notions involving the manipulation of electromagnetic fields or other unseen natural forces. The dawn of the early dynastic period heralded a monumental shift. Egypt, which had been divided into upper and lower regions, was unified under the rule of King Narmer, a seminal event immortalized on the famed Narmer Palette. This unification gave birth to the First Dynasty and set the stage for a cultural renaissance. Hieroglyphic writing emerged, a sophisticated system that allowed for intricate record-keeping and administration. Royal tombs, grand in their design, began to dot the landscape at Abydos and Saqqara, religious practices grew more elaborate, with gods like Ra and Osiris gaining prominence, and the first pyramids, like Djoser's step pyramid designed by Imhotep, began to reach towards the heavens. The Old Kingdom, often hailed as the Age of the Pyramids, saw the construction of these iconic monuments reach its zenith.
What happened was that in later times, the ancient Egyptians, who were the inheritors of the culture that originally established the Giza Plateau, that the ancient Egyptians found it necessary to restore and modify some very ancient monuments.
The Great Pyramid of Giza, a marvel of engineering and architecture, stood as a testament to the pharaoh's godlike status. Art and culture flourished with the Sphinx of Giza, a colossal statue combining the body of a lion with the head of a pharaoh, embodying the period's artistic audacity. However, this golden age was not to last. Political instability and the decentralization of power eventually ushered in the First Intermediate Period, a time of decline and turmoil. Out of chaos, the Middle Kingdom arose, a period marked by reunification and stability under rulers like Mentuhotep II. Literature and art saw a renaissance, with works like The Tale of Sinuhe, reflecting a more realistic and individualistic portrayal of life. Trade expanded, and fortifications were strengthened, signaling a kingdom more secure and prosperous than ever. The New Kingdom heralded an era of empire building, with Egypt's influence stretching from modern-day Syria to Sudan. This was the age of famous pharaohs like Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramesses II. Akhenaten's radical attempt at religious reform, introducing monotheistic worship of Aten, marked a brief but significant departure from traditional beliefs. Architectural achievements reached new heights, with the construction of grand temples at Karnak and Luxor, and the creation of the Valley of the Kings. Following the New Kingdom, Egypt entered a period of decline. The Third Intermediate Period was characterized by political fragmentation, and the late period saw foreign invasions and rule by Nubians, Assyrians, and Persians. The final phases of ancient Egyptian civilization were under the Greek Ptolemaic dynasty and Roman rule, marking the end of a civilization that had lasted for...
But what they don't like is the notion that certain knowledge and information accumulated by that culture was passed down all around the world, so that you find the same essential ideas in Mesopotamia, in ancient Egypt, in the Amazon rainforest, in Mexico, in Guatemala, amongst the Mayan culture, for example. The same essential ideas are being repeated.
The traditional Egyptology timeline reveals a civilization of incredible depth and complexity. From their architectural feats to the intricacies of their religious beliefs and social structures, the ancient Egyptians left an indelible mark on human history. Their story, woven into the fabric of the Nile's fertile valleys, continues to captivate and enlighten, a testament to the enduring legacy of one of the world's most remarkable civilizations. In the tapestry of human history, woven with the threads of established facts and intriguing mysteries, the Chemet theory presents a fascinating narrative. Central to this story is the concept of a global cataclysm, linked to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which is believed to have had a profound and lasting impact on human civilization, particularly on a sophisticated society known as Chemet. The stage for this narrative is set against the backdrop of the Younger Dryas, a period that occurred around 12,800 to 11,500 years ago. This era was marked by a sudden and drastic cooling of the Earth, interrupting the gradual warming that followed the last ice age. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis posits that this climatic anomaly was triggered by a comet or meteor impact, or possibly multiple impacts, around 10,900 BC. The hypothesis suggests that these cosmic collisions led to widespread fires, the creation of a dust cloud that blocked sunlight, and a resultant rapid return to cold conditions. Proponents of this hypothesis point to geological evidence like nanodiamonds and microspherules found in sediment layers as signs of this ancient cosmic event. From the perspective of the Chemet theory, this cataclysmic event is seen as the pivotal factor in the downfall of the advanced Chemet civilization. The theory suggests that the catastrophic events unleashed by the impact led to widespread destruction and loss of life, resulting in the rapid decline and eventual disappearance of Chemet. The envisioned aftermath includes massive fires, dramatic climate changes, and ecological disasters that would have been devastating enough to erase much of the civilization's technological and cultural achievements.
This was the 12,800 years ago was the onset of the Younger Dryas, which is a catastrophic climate episode, which is where the Earth has been emerging quite slowly and almost pleasantly from the Ice Age, and then suddenly goes back into a dramatic deep freeze.
In the wake of this disaster, the Chemet theory weaves a tale of survival and transmission. It suggests that the survivors, carrying with them the advanced knowledge of Chemet, dispersed across the globe. These survivors, according to the theory, had a significant influence on the development of other ancient civilizations. This is often cited as the reason for the striking similarities observed in architectural styles, mythological narratives, and astronomical knowledge across various ancient cultures. However, this captivating narrative is not without its challenges and debates. One of the contentious points raised by proponents is the erosion patterns observed on the Sphinx at Giza. They argue that these patterns suggest a much older date of construction, potentially aligning with the timeline of the Chemet civilization. This claim, however, is highly debated among Egyptologists and geologists, with many attributing the erosion to known climatic and environmental factors of a later period. Similarly, questions raised about the conventional understanding of pyramid construction techniques are used to support the theory's claim of more advanced technology. Critics, on the other hand, argue that the methods proposed by mainstream archaeology are plausible and consistent with the available evidence. The theory also draws on mythological and architectural parallels across different ancient cultures, interpreting these similarities as evidence of a shared ancient knowledge base. Mainstream scholars, however, typically view these parallels as examples of convergent cultural development or shared human experiences and archetypes, rather than proof of a single disseminated ancient wisdom.
The archaeologists and the prehistorians, people are looking at that, have failed to take into account the severity of these events we're talking about. You don't realize the extent of the total remodeling of this planetary surface that took place. Because the question always is, where are the artifacts? Where's the pottery? Where is the evidence that this civilization existed?
Randall Carlson's theory about advanced ancient civilizations is truly fascinating and a bit of a departure from what we usually hear in mainstream archaeology. He's suggesting that highly sophisticated societies might have existed tens of thousands of years ago, way before the traditional cradles of civilization like Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China came into the picture. Imagine civilizations thriving before or even during the last ice age, which wrapped up around 11,700 years ago. That idea alone pushes back the conventional timeline of human development by several thousand years. Now, when you look at the evidence Carlson brings to the table, it's primarily centered around those massive and mystifying megalithic structures scattered across the globe. Take the pyramids of Giza, for example. Their alignment with the stars of Orion's belt and the precision of their construction is just mind-blowing. Or Stonehenge, with its solstitial alignment, standing there on the Salisbury Plain.
Two of these shafts go all the way through the body of the pyramid and exit on the outside and actually point at particularly significant stars.
These structures suggest that the people who built them had a far more advanced understanding of astronomy than we usually give them credit for. Carlson dives into the engineering and architectural skills of these ancient builders. He talks about how they constructed these massive stone structures, some involving stones weighing several tons. Just think about the logistics of transporting and precisely placing these enormous stones over great distances. It indicates a level of engineering know-how and physical physics that seems way ahead of their time. Now moving on. Randall Carlson's theory about ancient civilizations is absolutely something different, isn't it? He really makes you think about the roots of our history in a new way. Just consider the megalithic structures scattered all over the world.
When you account for the rise of sea level and the isostatic subsidence of the sea floor, it's not at all implausible that you had a large island complex in the mid-Atlantic Ocean.
Carlson sees these as evidence of advanced prehistoric civilizations. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is made up of over 2 million stone blocks, each weighing tons, and they're all placed with incredible precision. It's not just about the sheer size, but the sophistication in their construction. And it's not just in one place. These megalithic structures are everywhere, from the stone circles in Europe to the pyramids in Egypt and Mesoamerica. Carlson points out that the similarities in construction techniques and astronomical alignments across different cultures hint at a possibly shared or globally distributed source of knowledge. It's like these ancient builders were all tapping into the same advanced understanding, which is pretty mind-blowing to think about. Now, where it gets even more intriguing, is how Carlson links the disappearance of this advanced knowledge to catastrophic events. He often refers to the younger Dryas impact hypothesis, suggesting that a comet impact might have triggered drastic climatic changes at the end of the Ice Age.
You may have periods of time where you have multiple impacts occurring over a short period of time associated with the destruction and disintegration of large comets.
Imagine massive flooding, climate shifts, and entire civilizations collapsing. It's like something out of a movie, but Carlson suggests it could be what wiped out these advanced societies and their knowledge. But here's the thing. He thinks this lost knowledge didn't just vanish. According to Carlson, it lived on in myths, legends, and religious texts, which he sees not just as stories but as historical records. Take the flood myths, for example, like Noah's Ark or the Epic of Gilgamesh. Carlson sees these as allegorical references to actual historical events, like massive post-glacial flooding. He believes that remnants of knowledge from these advanced civilizations were passed down through generations, albeit in a fragmented and symbolically encoded way. Moving back to megalithic structures, Randall Carlson's work on the astronomical alignments of megalithic structures is like peeling back layers of history to reveal the deep astronomical knowledge of ancient civilizations. Take the megalithic temples of Malta, Hagar Kim, and Manajra, for instance. These structures aren't just old, they're among the oldest freestanding structures in the world, dating back to around 3,200 BC. What's really remarkable about them is how they demonstrate an intricate understanding of celestial movements, particularly the solar cycle. When you look at these temples, especially during the equinoxes, it's like watching a celestial dance choreographed by ancient architects. At Manajra on the equinoxes, the sunlight filters through a specific aperture, illuminating an inner stone slab. It's this incredible precision that highlights how the builders weren't just stacking stones, they were aligning them with celestial events, marking the change of seasons with architectural precision. But it's not just about alignments. The architectural design itself is a marvel.
Some reference to such an event can be traced in many of the legends and myths surrounding these stars that have come down to us from nations far removed from each other.
The layout of the temples seems carefully planned to align with the sun's position at significant times of the year. For example, the main axis of Hagar Chim is almost perfectly oriented to where the sun rises during the solstices. It shows a level of planning and understanding of the sun's movements. And then there's the construction itself. We're talking about huge megaliths, each weighing several tons, placed with such accuracy that they align with celestial events. It wasn't just a matter of brute force, it required sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and construction techniques. Plus, they used local limestone, which is abundant in Malta. The complexity of these temples goes beyond just their size or the weight of the stones. They have multiple apses, altars, and intricate carvings, all forming part of a complex architectural design. The series of semicircular chambers connected by a central corridor, and their alignment with specific astronomical events. The pyramids of Giza, especially the Great Pyramid, the precision with which these pyramids align to the cardinal points of the compass is just mind-boggling. Think about it. The Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2580–2560 BC, is aligned almost perfectly north, south, east, and west. The northern side aligns to within a fraction of a degree of true north. Considering the era it was built in, that's an incredible feat of geometry and astronomy. The construction techniques themselves are a mystery. The ancient Egyptians might have used stars or the sun's path to find true north, which implies they had advanced surveying techniques and a deep understanding of angles and straight lines. It's impressive when you consider the tools and technology available at the time. Then there's the fascinating Orion correlation theory. This theory suggests that the layout of the three main pyramids at Giza mirrors the stars in Orion's belt. Proponents like Robert Bauval believe this alignment was intentional, reflecting a belief in the connection between the heavens and the afterlife.
They speak of these two regions of the sky, the southern sky with the stars of Orion, and can we move one slide up? Here's a nice view of them. They're pristine, by the way. It's really eerie how they carve those texts by hand, and some of the details is extraordinary.
With Orion associated with Osiris, the god of rebirth and the afterlife, the pyramids in this view were not just tombs but also celestial maps and gateways for the pharaoh's soul to the afterlife. The smallest pyramid, Menkaura's pyramid, is slightly offset, mirroring the offset of the smallest star, Mintaka, in Orion's belt, which adds another layer of intrigue to this theory. The design of the pyramids also incorporates alignments with the sun and specific stars and constellations. For example, certain shafts within the Great Pyramid align with particular stars. These could have been more than architectural features. They might have held spiritual significance, possibly serving as pathways for the pharaoh's soul to the stars. Also, on specific days of the year, the sun sets between the pyramids, creating a visual spectacle likely significant in ancient Egyptian ceremonies. Now one of the most known megalithic structures.
Would it be fair to say that there's an element of a rediscovery of a lost technology from the past?
I think it would be fair to say that, yes.
Stonehenge, out there on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. What's particularly fascinating about Stonehenge is its astronomical alignment and how it was constructed. The way it lines up with the summer solstice is probably what it's most famous for. On the longest day of the year, the sun rises right over the heel stone, which is set just outside the main stone circle. As the sun comes up, its rays shoot straight through the entrance and light up the center of the circle. Stonehenge also aligns with the winter solstice and possibly other celestial events. During the winter solstice, the sunset is framed by those massive stone trilithons, and some experts think it might even line up with lunar phenomena, which just adds another layer to how the builders understood both the sun and the moon's movements. When you think about how Stonehenge was built, it's even more mind-blowing. The final form was completed around 2500 BC, but it was built in phases over about 1,500 years. The main part of the monument is made up of these huge sarsen stones arranged in a circle, and there are smaller blue stones that were brought over from Wales. That's over 150 miles away. And then there's the layout of the stones. They're set up in this specific geometric pattern with an outer circle, an inner horseshoe arrangement, and those trilithon structures. The precision in the layout and how the stones are oriented show a really deep understanding of geometry and astronomy. It's not just a bunch of rocks placed randomly. Everything at Stonehenge is set up with purpose and meaning, which makes you wonder a little bit, doesn't it?
By all accounts, we are looking, if we take what's still under the ground into account, we're looking at the largest megalithic site that's ever been created on Earth.
Göbekli Tepe is a site that truly boggles the mind, taking us back over 11,000 years to a time when prehistoric peoples demonstrated remarkable capabilities that challenge our understanding of early human civilization.
The sudden appearance, 7,000 years before Stonehenge, of a megalithic site that dwarfs Stonehenge, to me that's a mystery, and it's really worth inquiring into.
Imagine this. Massive stone pillars, each carved from limestone using nothing more than simple stone tools. It's a task that would require not just considerable skill, but a collective effort from a group of people who had yet to discover the wheel or metal tools. These pillars weren't just any stones, they were shaped into T-forms, a design that's unique to Göbekli Tepe, standing up to 5.5 meters tall and weighing up to 20 tons.
One of the many ways that Göbekli Tepe, I think, is going to prove to be a game changer is it's going to require us to reconsider our whole dating sequence on megalithic sites around the world.
The effort to transport and erect these massive stones without modern technology is nothing short of astonishing. Using levers, ropes, and wooden sledges, the people of Göbekli Tepe managed to move these enormous stones over considerable distances, a testament to their ingenuity and teamwork. This wasn't a small feat, it required a high level of social organization and cooperation, suggesting that this community was far from the nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers we often imagine.
But why did archaeologists tell us for so long hunter-gatherers couldn't do it, and we needed agricultural populations that could generate surpluses that could pay for the specialists
that was
to...
the theory.
Instead, they were capable of complex planning and communal effort, likely driven by shared beliefs and common goals. The technological innovation and architectural planning evident in Göbekli Tepe's construction are truly ahead of their time. The precision in the carving and erection of the pillars, along with the thoughtful layout of the site, show an advanced understanding of stone masonry and basic engineering principles. This sophistication challenges the simplistic view we often have of prehistoric societies, revealing a people capable of complex thought and remarkable feats of engineering. When you dive into the story of Göbekli Tepe, you're not just exploring ancient ruins. You're stepping into a world where prehistoric peoples pulled off engineering marvels that would be daunting even by today's standards. Picture this: a community back in the 10th millennium BCE, without access to metal tools, the wheel, or any form of animal labor, decides to build something extraordinary. They set their sights on massive limestone pillars, each one towering over 5 meters high and weighing around 10 tons. And they decide to quarry, shape, transport, and erect these giants using nothing but stone hammers, wooden tools, and sheer human will. It's a scenario that might make a modern engineer blink twice. These ancient builders leveraged ingenious methods, likely rolling these colossal stones over logs or dragging them on sleds made from tree trunks, all coordinated by what must have been an incredible communal effort. Just imagine the sight, hundreds of people coming together, each one playing a part in this monumental task. It wasn't just about physical strength, it required a high degree of planning, coordination, and social organization, suggesting that these early communities were far more complex than we often give them credit for. And let's talk about the layout of Göbekli Tepe. It wasn't a haphazard arrangement of stones.
Göbekli Tepe is a bit more nuanced. You know, we have stone circles, we have some interesting astronomical alignments. The world's first perfectly north-south aligned building.
These T-shaped pillars were carefully positioned to form circular enclosures, a testament to the builders' advanced planning and knowledge of stonemasonry. They understood the properties of limestone, knew how to quarry large blocks and shape them with precision. The placement of each pillar was intentional, reflecting a deep understanding of geometry and structural engineering. Göbekli Tepe is like a time capsule that's slowly revealing its secrets to us, and among its most captivating mysteries are the potential astronomical alignments hidden within its ancient stone circles. Imagine standing among these massive pillars over 10,000 years ago, looking up at the night sky. Some researchers think that the people who built Göbekli Tepe did more than just admire the stars. They aligned their monumental structures with them. The idea that these ancient builders could align their creations with constellations like Sirius or Orion, or mark the solstices and equinoxes, is mind-blowing. It suggests they were not just master builders, but also early astronomers, tracking the heavens with an accuracy that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric peoples. This possibility opens up all sorts of fascinating questions about how and why they did this. If the alignments at Göbekli Tepe were intentional, it could mean that these ancient builders had their own form of astronomical observation, maybe even a basic calendar system. Göbekli Tepe and the lack of evidence for permanent settlement presents a fascinating glimpse into the spiritual life of people over 11,000 years ago. This site, rather than serving as a home or village, appears to have been a significant ceremonial or pilgrimage destination. The absence of typical domestic remains, such as extensive cooking hearths or trash pits that would indicate long-term habitation, suggests that Göbekli Tepe was not a place where people lived year-round. Instead, it was likely visited by various groups for specific purposes, possibly related to religious or spiritual practices. This realization points to a level of social complexity and spiritual or religious depth that predates the advent of agriculture and settled life, challenging the conventional sequence of societal development. The stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe, carved with an impressive array of reliefs and symbols, are among the earliest known examples of narrative art, offering profound insights into the prehistoric mind. These carvings feature a diverse menagerie of animals: foxes, lions, bulls, snakes, wild boars, and birds, each meticulously rendered, suggesting a deep reverence or symbolic significance attached to these creatures. The presence of such carvings indicates not only advanced artistic skills and aesthetic sensibilities, but also suggests these animals held particular meanings for the people who created them. They could represent clan totems, spiritual guides, or mythological stories central to the community's beliefs and rituals. Moreover, the humanoid figures, some of which appear to be depicted wearing animal skins, hint at early forms of shamanistic practices, or the veneration of deities or priests donned in ceremonial garb. These figures could represent intermediaries between the physical world and the spiritual realm, playing crucial roles in the rituals and ceremonies conducted at the site. The abstract symbols found alongside the more representational carvings add another layer of complexity to our understanding of Göbekli Tepe's spiritual significance. These symbols could be early attempts at encoding sacred knowledge, marking significant events, or conveying complex concepts related to cosmology, theology, or social order. The carvings on Göbekli Tepe's pillars, therefore, are not merely decorative, but are deeply imbued with meaning, serving as a tangible connection to the beliefs, rituals, and cosmologies of prehistoric peoples. They provide a window into a world where spirituality was expressed through the medium of stone, and where the natural and supernatural realms were closely intertwined. The story of Göbekli Tepe is like something out of a movie, an ancient site buried under tons of soil and debris around 8000 BCE, only to be rediscovered and shake up everything we thought we knew about the dawn of civilization. This wasn't just a case of a lost city getting swallowed up by the sands of time. It was an intentional act, a massive project that likely took as much effort and organization as the construction of the site itself. Why would a society go through such lengths to bury this place? The theories are as fascinating as they are varied, ranging from ritualistic closure to a strategic move for preservation against natural disasters or even invasions. But here's the kicker. Göbekli Tepe turns the Neolithic Revolution's narrative on its head. The common story is that agriculture kick-started the rise of complex societies and monumental architecture.
The idea that we come across that another turn of the spade reveals information that causes us to reconsider not just was it hunter-gatherers or agriculturalists, but perhaps something bigger than this is involved.
Yet here we have an elaborate complex built by hunter-gatherers long before farming took hold. It suggests that the impulse to gather for religious or ceremonial reasons might have been a driving force behind settling down and forming communities. This discovery forces us to rethink not just the timeline of human history, but the very factors that drive societal development. Göbekli Tepe shows us that hunter-gatherer societies were capable of a level of organization, cooperation, and spiritual expression that we usually only attribute to settled farming communities. It hints at a world where shared beliefs and rituals were the glue that held societies together, potentially paving the way for the transition to a sedentary lifestyle.